Hello. Are you sitting comfortably? Yes? I'll get back to that later on. Last week, I helped a 60-year-old woman to become a lizard. I wasn't practicing magic, honestly, but I'm a Feldenkrais practitioner, and that means that I encourage people to find a better way of moving, because when you feel better about yourself physically, quite often that makes you feel better about your whole self. Feldenkrais, yes, I know. Well, it's named after Moshe Feldenkrais, who developed this method of movement awareness, of the habits and the patterns that we adopt throughout everyday life. So why a lizard? Well, this lady, I'll call her Margaret, had never learnt to crawl as a baby. Her parents worried about her and tried to keep her safe, so she never learnt to climb walls or trees, or to get mucky or skim her knees. But when she went to school and saw the other children jumping off walls, splashing into puddles, she was amazed, and so she went away to practice on her own. But because she'd always been kept safe from doing something like this, she didn't know how to jump and land safely. So instead she fell badly and hurt herself. But what is worse is that she felt ashamed and so never wanted to try again. At the age of 60, Margaret decided she wanted more joy out of life. Maybe not jumping off walls, but at least being able to walk without fear of tripping, and to dance without feeling ashamed or fear of failure. So she came to me for a Feldenkrais lesson, and we decided to work together at the very beginning, relearning how to crawl like a lizard. Did you know that the ancient Romans believed that we have had all the knowledge that we need for our lives before we're born, while we're still in the womb? We know everything we need to know. But the shock of childbirth is so great that we forget everything, and so we spend the rest of our days trying to relearn what we once knew. So we're not learning, we're kind of recollecting knowledge we once had. I believe that some of that knowledge does survive childbirth into babyhood and even to childhood, but later on gets lost when we get caught up in the hustle and bustle of everyday life. But do you know that in the first 18 months of your life, you learn more than you'll ever do in the rest of your days on this planet? And how do we learn? Well, a baby learns first by touching, and then tasting, grabbing, reaching, and from reaching, rolling over, from rolling over to crawling, from crawling to standing, from standing to walking. It's amazing. It's the most complicated thing you'll ever do. And you do this in the first 18 months of life. And why does a baby do it? Because it's fun. Because it's interesting, and it gets you closer to that bright, shiny toy you want to get. So if a baby knows all this, is this clever, why as adults do we think that all learning has to be through effort? No pain, no gain. A baby learns things through developing a rhythm. You repeat and repeat till something like rolling over becomes easy and habitual. It's a pattern, it's a habit, and it gets you what you want. And a habit can be comforting, give you a sense of security, a sense of identity, but sometimes it can get in your way. Do any of us remember what we were like as babies? I bet as adults we do know what it's like to get stuck, sometimes stuck in our habits. So how do we get unstuck? I had a friend once who had a red setter. Don't you know, those dogs have got loads of energy. And every time we let him out the house into the fields at the back of the house, this dog would just run and run for miles. And my friend used to walk for hours trying to get the dog back. So he got tired of this one day, so he had a great idea. So he got this washing line and he tied it to the dog's collar, and he tied the other end of the washing line to a stick in the middle of the field and let the dog run. And the setter ran round and round in circles until finally he got dizzy and then tired and then fell over. But it was working. And then people said to him, this isn't very fair on the dogs. He said, fair enough. So after a while, he let the dog out, undid the washing line, and let the dog run free. And the dog ran round and round in circles till he got dizzy and tired and fell over. We can be red setters too sometimes. Albert Einstein said that the definition of madness is to do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. A few years ago, I got a pain in this shoulder, my right shoulder, when I moved it like this. So do you know something? Every time I move it like this, it hurts. When I move my shoulder like this, it hurts. I'm moving my shoulder, and do you know something? It really hurts. Luckily, I had started doing this Feldenkrais training. So one thing we try to do is try and work out what's the cause of something rather than carrying on. So I sat in my car one day. I was doing a lot of driving at that time. And as I went to put my hands on the steering wheel, my right elbow floated up in the air and rested on the window. Just this tiny bit of my elbow resting on the window. And I realised that this is how I always drove. Well, had been, not always, okay. But for 150 miles, from Sheffield to Norwich, and sometimes back again, I would drive with my arms stuck up in the air. No wonder it hurt. But I realised that this was a memory of my dad. And I had many happy memories of driving with my dad as a child. And he always used to have his arms stuck on the window, right hand holding the steering wheel, because the left hand had a fag on. And that's how he drove. So when I realised this was happening, I finally learnt every time I got in the car to take my elbow down. Every time I sat in the car, I had to take my elbow down and get rid of that habit. But throwing away that habit didn't get rid of the memory of my father. It's still there, but I had to move it away from me. Throwing away a habit can be frightening because habits give us this sense of identity and comfort, don't they? And it's an identity, like I know who I am. I do this because this is what I do. But sometimes we have to think about why we do what we do. So sometimes what does happen, like me in my car, we also find that we don't think about how we treat our bodies, how much control we're in. Are you sitting comfortably right now? Who's in charge, the chair or you? Actually, these chairs are quite comfy. Ruined my talk, thanks Hugh. But we spend a lot of time trying to adjust ourselves to our furniture. Yes? You sit at your desk at work. And I know a lot of people sit with their legs dangling because it looks untidy to put a book underneath your feet. We sit on the bus and wonder why we've got a pain in our back because the furniture isn't people-shaped and we try to make ourselves furniture-shaped. Why do we give ourselves up so easily to not just the furniture, but also to other people's ideas, experts' opinions, ignoring your own instincts when you're in pain, when you shouldn't be doing something? We don't seem to have that courage about ourselves. When people come to me in a Feldenkrais class, the first thing that they're worried about is that they're going to have to do something right, and they're worried that they're going to get it wrong. But when you come into a Feldenkrais class, we don't have anybody for you to copy. I might give you some ideas and suggestions, but there's nobody there to copy. You can just try and work out what works for you, which for some people is really quite frightening because they're not sure what works for them. But I would say that once you get a sense of curiosity about yourself, your physical self in the world, and how you feel about that, that sense of curiosity can help your feeling of potential grow a great deal. Like Margaret, you might spend a great deal of your adult life trying to find the fun, developing your sense of curiosity, but you never know. You might become your own magic lizard. I hope you do.